Bonne fête nationale! Happy Bastille Day, everybody! Quoi de neuf, Demon? My name is Alucard, and today we are celebrating French cinema. Allons-y! From the French New Wave to the new French extremity films, France has given us some of the wildest and best films in cinema. So this here is a list of some of my favorite French horror films. So we have to start off with Georges Méliès, right? Of course, he was the mastermind behind 1902's A Trip to the Moon, which I also think is a must-watch, but we're not talking about that one today, because he also is credited with making the world's first horror film, Le Manoir du Diable, aka The House of the Devil, aka The Haunted Castle, or The Devil's Castle, from 1896. It opens with a giant flying bat going into a castle. How could I not love that? It tells the story of two cavaliers and their encounter with the devil. There's some mind-blowing special effects which really highlight this 3-minute short, which is available to watch right here on YouTube. Next up, we have 1929's Un Chien Andalou, aka An Andalusian Dog, from director Louis Buñuel. This surrealist short doesn't really have a typical plot per se, nor is it strictly a horror film either, but the striking images linger in your mind. Everyone knows that eyeball slicing scene, right? Yep, that's from this movie right here. And you can watch this 21-minute short right here on YouTube as well. All right, so let's move on to the talkies with 1960's Eyes Without a Face, aka Les Yeux Sans Visage, from director Georges Franju. It's about a plastic surgeon and his assistant abducting women so he can perform a face transplant onto his daughter, who was horribly disfigured in a car accident. Now, this movie contains kidnapping, medical procedures, and the daughter wearing this creepy ass mask for most of the film. It's an absolute must see if you haven't seen it, and it is currently streaming on Max. Next up, I have another strange film for you from 1970 called The Nude Vampire, aka La Vampire Nude, from director Jean Rollin. So as you can probably tell, this one contains a whole lot of nudity. But don't let that deter you. This is a weird, trippy flick about a suicide cult led by a guy called the Master. After I watched this, I could not get Eyes Wide Shut out of my head. I have to think this inspired some of the imagery in that movie. So if you're into bizarre cinema, definitely check this one out. It is often streaming on Kino Cult. All right, next we travel to 1976 with Roman Polanski's The Tenant, aka Le Locataire. This is a psychological horror thriller starring Roman Polanski himself, along with Isabella Gianni, Melvin Douglas, and Shelley Winters. This is the final movie in Polanski's apartment trilogy, along with Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby, which I recommend both of those as well, but technically neither one of them are French. The Tenant tells the tale of Telkovsky, a young man looking for an apartment in France. When he finally finds one, he discovers that it's empty because the previous tenant, Simone, attempted to kill herself by jumping out of the window. After Simone dies from her injuries, Telkovsky begins to become obsessed with her to the point of believing that her death was caused by the rest of the tenants in the building. This, I think, is Polanski's most underrated gem. I was thrilled to find this DVD at a used movie store a couple of years ago. And yeah, I know it's Polanski, and he's not the greatest guy, but he made some killer films, and this is one of them. This one is currently streaming on Canopy. Now we fast forward to 1989 with Deadly Games, aka Game Over, Dial Code Santa, Hide and Freak, and 3615 Code Père Noël. It is directed by Rene Manzor. This one is about a tech whiz kid trying to contact Santa through a computer. He inadvertently contacts a deranged vagrant claiming to be Santa. Santa infiltrates, oh, I'm sorry, Santa infiltrates his mother's department store and hitches a ride to their house, where this movie then turns into a horror version of Home Alone, with the kid versus Santa. Speaking of Home Alone, the filmmakers of Deadly Games threatened legal action of plagiarism, alleging they had remade the movie. Check this flick out and let me know what you think. It is currently streaming on Shudder. We now enter the 21st century with 2001's Brotherhood of the Wolf, aka Le Pacte de Loup, from director Christophe Gans. This, loosely based on a true story, takes place in 18th century France, where the Chevalier de Français and Manny of the Iroquois tribe are sent to investigate the mysterious slaughter of hundreds of people by an unknown beast in Gévaudan. This film is a bit more of an action movie with some horror elements. It features a bunch of swashbuckling, martial arts, and creature design from Jim Henson's Creature Shop. I remember seeing this at the cinema and I really enjoyed it. It is currently available on Shudder. Alright, you probably knew this was coming. We're heading into the new French extremity with 2003's High Tension, aka Switchblade Romance and Hot Tension, from director Alexandre Aja. This one is about two female students who arrive at a secluded farmhouse to study, where they are shortly invaded by a serial killer. So yeah, it's an early home invasion slasher flick, but man, this thing is bloody as hell. I remember seeing this movie really early at like 10 a.m. at a sneak peek, and let me tell you, it woke me up real fast. You can peep this one at a bunch of different places, such as Amazon Prime, Tubi, Canopy, Pluto TV, Plex, and Freevee. So pick your poison. Alright, we continue with the new French extremity films with my personal favorite of the genre, 2008's Martyrs, from writer-director Pascal Laugier. This is a revenge movie to end all revenge movies. This one is about a young woman named Lucy who was abducted and tortured as a child, returning for revenge 15 years later. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail here because I don't want to spoil this insane film. The synopsis I gave is only the first few minutes of the movie. It spirals into Lucy discovering even more. Now, fair warning, this one is not for the faint of heart, nor are the last two films I'm about to mention. But Martyrs is available on Tubi, Plex, and Pluto TV. And be sure you watch the 2008 French one, because there's also an American remake that's not so great. Next up, we have 2016's coming-of-age horror, Raw, aka Grave, from director Julie Ducournau. The film follows a young vegetarian's first year at veterinary school, where she is forced to eat meat for the first time during a hazing ritual, and she then develops a craving for flesh. This might be my favorite cannibal film. It's done in such a unique way, and I was just riveted the whole runtime of the movie. Now, Raw is unfortunately not streaming anywhere, but it is available to rent at many different places. And lastly, we have 2017's Revenge from director Coralie Farge. This intense film is about a young woman who is sexually assaulted by her paramour and left for dead in the desert by him and two other guys. When she recovers, she seeks revenge upon her attackers. This one has a standout performance from its leading lady, Matilda Lutz. She just goes full tilt badass in this movie. This is I Spit on Your Grave level of revenge, but amped up even more. If you've seen that one, you kind of know what you're getting into here. Revenge is currently streaming on Shudder. Have you seen any of these French horror films? If so, what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And I also have a list of non-horror French films that I'd like to recommend as well. So let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. Until next time, adios, Bella Lugosi. Or should I say, au revoir, Bella Lugosi.